of Black Hills Leadership Development Board. I want to thank you for joining us today. And whether you're in person or Zoom, we're always happy to have your attendance. You'll be hearing more about our safety culture at Black Hills Energy, but I want to share that I work for our community affairs team there, and we like to start each meeting with a safety share. So in true Black Hills Energy fashion, I would like to start our luncheon with one. In case of an emergency, please remain calm and exit through the nearest exit. I don't want to be a flight attendant, but it could be behind you. And please make your way down to the lobby and exit out of the appropriate door that doesn't have a sign that says, please don't use this door. But in some situations, the elevator is not appropriate, such as in fires. So please use the stairs with caution if you are someone who normally uses the elevators. All right. If this is your first luncheon with us, thank you. And thanks for braving the cold to be here. The purpose of these luncheons is to strengthen current leaders and develop upcoming leaders in our community. It's also a great networking opportunity to hear about diverse leadership styles throughout our city. I want to thank our sponsor, Black Hills Energy, and our speaker, Linn, who's the CEO of Black Hills Energy. Since you'll be hearing more about Black Hills Energy from Linn, Black Hills Energy wanted to share the spotlight with one of our community partners. Please begin eating. They should be serving your lunches shortly. As I invite Michelle Luby-Gerch, Director of Development from One Heart, to say a few words about our organization.
Well, thank you, Rachel, and thank you to Black Hills Energy for this opportunity. I would like to just share a few things with you about One Heart. You may or may not be familiar with it, but today what I want to do is share some highlights about an organization that has had its 1-year anniversary on January 4th, 2021. What I want to do is share what is One Heart, who does One Heart serve, and how is One Heart changing individual lives, impacting the workforce here in Rapid City, and helping to continue to build Rapid City into a vibrant and healthy community. The mission of One Heart is to create pathways out of poverty for those desiring to thrive. I'm going to repeat that one more time. To create pathways out of poverty for those who are desiring to thrive. One Heart is a very unique organization, has a unique mission, and it's somewhat different than any other organizations here in Rapid City. It's located at 217 Kansas City Street. Some of you may recall that's the old National American University campus. And it's a 4-acre transformation campus that seeks to eliminate or to mitigate the barriers that poverty creates in people's lives so that they can no longer progress on a normal path. We provide traditional housing and other basic needs at no cost to our clients. We call our clients guests. They are called guests for a couple of reasons. One, we want them to feel very welcome when they come to One Heart, and two, One Heart is a transition for them. This is not going to be home. This is just a place where they're going to get their footing back under them and move on to life in a different capacity. To enroll in One Heart, people often think we're a homeless shelter. We are not. You have to apply to be part of One Heart, and one of the unique aspects of One Heart is that we have about 20 community partners, 20 nonprofit agencies that have been trained to look at some of their clients and determine if they might be a good fit for One Heart. So they might be referred to us, they then apply, they are interviewed, and at that time they're going to learn some of the different details about One Heart. So if you're ready to come to One Heart, if you're ready to thrive, you're going to be coming to a campus that will provide you your lodging at no expense, but you will have a curfew. It is a dry campus. You will know that you are going to be meeting with a counselor once a week. You are going to develop a plan. And in that plan, you need to recognize that you're going to work on a skill, your employment, or some type of job or education. So as long as you want to work on those things, you will develop your own plan to identify what you need to be working on. And your time at One Heart is not limited to 3 months or 3 weeks. It's until you reach your plan goals. One of the things that, in addition to those 20 partners that are at One Heart that we work with in the community, we have about 11 or 12 agencies on site at One Heart. They have satellite offices in our main campus building. So that creates a real efficiency for our clients. So someone might be working on their education, so they're meeting with their counselor that day, and then they can have an appointment with a representative from Western Dakota Tech or Black Hills Community Education. They might be going to counseling with behavioral management. So all of those offices are located at our main campus. Dress for Success, what used to be out at the mall, is now located at One Heart. We have 3 residential towers. There's one for men, one for women, and one for families. You might be surprised to know that right now the highest population is in our family towers. Sometimes it's a mom with children, sometimes it's a mom and a dad with children, but we have about 52 guests in the family towers right now. So there are 89 different units within the whole tower system. We have transformation counselors. We have a group called the LSRS team. They are the Life Safety Residential Support. Go ahead and say that 5 times. But they are that particular group is there 24/7. They're the folks that work in the towers, and they are there to make sure that safety is taken care of. That's always of utmost concern. We have clients that come from a variety of situations. We've had individuals who have come from sex trafficking, from abusive relationships, and so when you come into the tower, you have to have key access to get in there. You'll visit with one of the LSRS team members, and on our campus, people are somewhat surprised, but we have about 100 cameras throughout the campus just set up so that everyone from our clients to the guests are safe. This is a little short for the podium, as I tell you. Some of the programs that we have at One Heart, people are really surprised because what are some of the things that prevent people from being employed or getting to a job? It's child care. The YMCA actually provides our child care program. We have a regular child care facility located on campus. So you just run your child to their daycare program, and then you can go off to work, or you can go off to your education, whatever it is that you're doing. We also have what's called a social enterprise. I don't know if any of you have gone to our home brew. It's a coffee shop that's on campus, and a lot of nonprofit agencies such as One Heart will have a social enterprise that it is a business, but it helps to sustain the mission of One Heart. We also have a transportation program. Again, from a workforce perspective, that is one of the things that causes people problems in staying employed. They can't get to their job, their car blows up, whatever. You hear all sorts of excuses and reasons, and quite frankly, most of them are probably true. So we have a transportation program, was funded by the generosity of an organization and some individuals and some grants here in Rapid City. It's for 5 days a week. Morris is our driver who works Monday through Friday. We're hoping to expand that program to purchase a second van and to hire an additional driver. But in the years since we've had the program, he has provided 657 trips for people to their jobs. He's provided 257 trips for education. And there's numerous other times that he's provided transportation to folks, such as to a doctor appointment or to some other type of appointment. When we expand the program, we want to be able to include evenings and weekends so that there are things that you could attend to your child's school, whatever other kind of appointments you might have. How are we funded? You would be surprised that we have really had we've been very blessed. We receive vision funds. We've received numerous significant grants from organizations such as the Bush Foundation, Larson Family Foundation, United Way. A number of organizations here in Rapid City, businesses have provided funding. And then of course there's just individuals who provide funding for this. We have groups that just step up to say, do you need any help? And they've come to help paint some buildings or done their own fundraising and then present us with a check. So we have lots of opportunities that have really made One Heart at this point for a brand new nonprofit agency. We are funded through the middle of 2024. We want to continue being funded consistently. We recognize that when we graduate someone from this program, they are going back into our community, no longer on any social service agencies. They are now sustaining themselves. They are becoming a healthy member of our community a healthy worker for wherever it is that they are employed. They're a better parent, and we are stopping that generational and situational poverty. I just want to say that we have some great stories. I would invite you to go to our website to just sign up for our newsletter, which is done on a monthly basis. You have in front of, well, most of you have, and I do apologize. I anticipated about 40 guests and made 50 envelopes with some information there for you, just to tell you some of the things that have gone on with One Heart this past year. It also has my contact information, and I would be more than happy to visit with any of you at any time. Would answer questions or provide tours at your convenience. So thank you again to Black Hills Energy for this opportunity, and thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of One Heart, a place of hope and healing. My name is Michelle Luby-Gertsch, and I'm the Director of Development.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate you giving a quick update, and congrats on the 1-year anniversary. That's a great year. All right, food is being passed out shortly if you haven't received it yet. So please continue to eat and network until about noon when we'll hear from our speaker. And if you haven't yet already put your business card or contact information in the green bowl at the back, you will be entered into a drawing for the book recommendation from Linn Evans, and then also a free future luncheon registration. And Linn's book is Love Work, 7 Timeless Principles of Effective Leadership by Joel Mandy. Thank you. All right, I hope you enjoyed lunch.
Right.
Yeah.
Backup.
And before we hear from Linn Evans, I wanted to share a little bit about his background. Linn Evans joined Black Hills Energy in 2001 and was elected board of directors in 2018 and then named president and CEO in 2019. He was the president and chief operating officer from 2016 to 2019 and then served as president and chief operating officer for our company's utilities for about a decade. He served as vice president and general manager of the Black Hills Energy's former telecommunications subsidiary and as an associate counsel. Before joining the company, Linn Evans held engineering and management roles within the mining industry and as an attorney in the private practice of law, representing corporate clients in state and federal courts. He received his bachelor's degree in mining and engineering from the University of Missouri Science and Technology and a doctorate of law from Lewis and Clark's Northwestern School of Law. He stays active in our community by serving on numerous nonprofit boards and organizations and enjoys spending time with his wife and his 3 daughters. Please help me in welcoming Linn Evans.
Thank you, Rachel. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here, which was a kind introduction. I think it was President Lyndon Johnson said my father would have believed it and my mother would have been proud, or maybe I got this backwards, but thank you for that. It's nice to have family and friends here, lots of colleagues, lots of acquaintances. Thank you for being here. I've got a little heckling table over here. Yeah, see, talk about those nonprofit boards. And I will especially thank my bride for being here of 32 years, Gloria. She does a great job of taking care of things at home, so I can spend the time and the energy I need to at least do this job as best I possibly can. So I appreciate her. Thank you. I am going to talk about a very different topic, and I've got a lot going on this week. I don't know how Rachel talked me into this 6 months ago. Something like that. We're at the end of, we're doing year-end, quarter-end, board meetings, all kinds, year earnings calls, all kinds of things going on. So I don't feel like I put the time I'd like to put into what I usually do these. So bear with me as I walk through this. It's an important topic. And I have one of those jobs that's a get-to job. I get to do a lot of things. And I get to do a lot of fun things and challenging things. And lots of opportunities. And probably one of the biggest get-tos that I get to do that I enjoy is shaping and forming the culture of Black Hills Energy and Black Hills Corporation. I'll talk a little bit about our organization here in a few moments. But when Rachel called a few weeks ago to say, what are your topic going to be? I said, well, I want something different, maybe something you haven't heard about before. And so I chose love in action in the workplace. How many of you have been to a presentation or a seminar where you talk about love in the workplace? not a single, one hand. I was gonna say, yeah, me neither. At least especially not outside of the walls of Black Hills Energy and Black Hills Corporation. I have a book that I get to recommend to you. It's a book that I'll talk about here in a couple of moments, but it's really where it sprang from, what my conversation is going to spring from that. In fact, how many of you have ever been to Silver Dollar City? Friends over there, my family, friends. Anybody been to Whitewater? Anybody been to Dollywood and Pigeon Forge? Yes. How many of you? Anybody driven a Saab? One hand. Anybody driven a Saturn vehicle? A few hands too. Well, the author of the book that I'm recommending, he was the CEO of all of those companies over a 25-year period. I'd like to say we have a little bit in common. I used to work in college for the Hershen Family Entertainment. They own Silver Dollar City, Pigeon Forge, things like that. He was the CEO of their company. And a lot of things he puts in his book he learned from his time as the CEO of that organization. Now, we're not here to talk about the mushy Peyton Place part of love. We're going to talk about love, the verb. I'm going to spend some time with that. Again, my first time to speak publicly about love, the verb, but I think it's extremely important to organizations. So let me get on with my comments. So let me forewarn you though, if you think this talk is going to be about, just about love and using it as an excuse to avoid the hard truths about leading an organization, let me put your mind at ease. That's not what this is going to be about. The bottom line performance of an organization, as we all know, is absolutely critical, and I don't think I'm going to change your mind about that today, but the bottom line of our organizations has to be there. So things I'm going to talk about today are things that I believe will help you improve your bottom line if you're appropriately focused on other things that influence your organization, which I intend to talk about today. So I think the long-term financial success of a business is repeatedly doing the right thing in the right moment over and over and over again, which includes what I will talk about as love in the workplace. I need 3 hands, but I'm going to try to do some things here simultaneously. All right. Rachel, I knew I learned it. Okay. I sometimes joke about this slide. I'll joke about it again today. I don't look good in orange. Sometimes you know what that means. There are some photographs floating around of me, however, in an orange suit, but that's a whole different topic. Some people up here know what I'm talking about. I lost a bet once, or we won a bet. We encouraged the team if they would raise $750,000 to give to a charity that could dress me however they chose to, and for some reason they chose an orange suit. So that's a long conversation. But this is a safe harbor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We are a publicly traded organization. We have 64 million outstanding shares, roughly. And as a public company, I need to be very careful about the things that I talk about. I will be talking about forward-looking issues within our organization, I believe. As I do that, I encourage you, if you make a decision to invest in our company, given that we are publicly traded, please review our investment materials on our website before you make an investment in our company. All right, you ready for the next slide? You ready? Come on. Here we go. Yeah, we all need a little cuteness, don't we? This is our brand new grandbaby born in late October. I had the chance to take this photograph about 10 or 12 days ago with him sitting in my lap. And when I took the photograph, I sent it to my senior leadership team, and I had a caption something like, "My advice for the day is please spend time with people who laugh at your jokes." Obviously he does, but that's Lewis. My wife and I are very proud of him. And I have at the top of it, love in action, life, leadership, and relationships. I got my first job at age 7. I've been on somebody's payroll ever since age 7. So I guess I could say I've been working for 53 years almost. But I've been out of college and working full time for 38 plus years. And the more I'm in the workplace, the more time I spend in the workplace making decisions, trying to be a leader, the more I realize that life and leadership is about one thing, relationships. I think we've all learned that through our careers. So that's my advice for today, is watch those relationships. Let's talk about that too. So who are we? I want to give you just a 1 minute or 2 minute commercial on who Black Hills Corporation is. Until we built our building up at Horizon Point, very few people knew who we were, and I kind of enjoyed the anonymity, honestly. But we started in 1883 in Deadwood, South Dakota. We served the electric trolley of Deadwood, South Dakota, started by a then judge that held court in Deadwood. But 139 years ago, I often think about the hardy souls and people who built our system from scratch. And just think about that. It wasn't that long ago, 139 years before any of this ever existed in terms of our facilities. We're publicly traded, I said that. We started that in 1980, so a big change for us from 1883 to where we are today. Gives you a snapshot again of who we are. We serve 1.3 million customers. You can see our service territory from Wyoming to the Mississippi Valley of Arkansas. Excuse me. We manage about $8.1 billion in growing of assets. We have 3,000 employees. And about our headquarters are here in Rapid City, South Dakota. Very important to us. Strong commitment to Rapid City and the Black Hills. About 5% of our customers are here in the Black Hills region. All the others are obviously elsewhere, so nice growth within our organization. Very quickly, we're a very capital-intensive organization. And you'll hear me talk about shareholder returns, etc. We're very focused on the shareholders. Our shareholders invest $1 in us today. What do they want back tomorrow? I hear $2. I'll take that one. But we take that very seriously. They want back more than what they invest in us. And so one way that we grow, of course, is investing in our service territory into our facilities. We anticipate investing $3.2 billion into our system 2021 through 2025. As I said, we're at year end. Very soon we'll be updating these numbers to include 2026. But we have to make sure that our shareholders are satisfied to make sure we attract that $3.2 billion to our organization that we intend to invest. So let me get to the topic of the afternoon, love at work. Talking about the verb, again, not the emotion love. As I've always liked to say as leaders, we need to bring love to the workplace. And we're talking about that at Black Hills Energy. Not a lot. I've got some of my fellow employees here, my coworkers here. It's not something that we're pounding our chest on about, but we are beginning to turn up the volume. They will remember a presentation perhaps by our Chief Human Resource Officer. We really started this for our organization, Love in Action. And you're going to hear me talk about some love in action at Black Hills. But treating someone with love. And we're talking about the workplace. It's not a word we hear in the workplace very frequently. But I think we ought to start talking about that more within the workplace. Again, not taking the eye off the bottom line. And love, frankly, comes in some very hard things we have to do if we truly love our employees. I'll talk about that. But I'll submit that love makes us better spouses. Don't talk to my wife too much. At least Rachel laughed. It makes us better parents, makes us better grandparents. And I would argue it makes us better leaders as well. So let's dive in. A lot of these topics can go on for quite some time. So I'm going to preface, I'm going to hit some very high things with respect to some of these principles. You're going to recognize these principles from some other areas of reading you probably have done. These are the principles that Mr. Manby has put into his book. I borrowed these from him. You'll see where he borrowed them eventually. But I want to go through these. I'm going to go to a very high level, give you some what I think are some tools that we can use with each one, and then we'll wrap up. First is patient. When we think about patience, it's probably easier to think about what is the opposite of patience. And if somebody who's lost their cool, it's usually a manager or a leader who's lost their temper, maybe during a very stressful time. We all have those. Maybe they're admonishing their team, or let's just simply say they're yelling at their team. And as leaders, we have to provide feedback to our team. That's something I want to talk about as well when we talk about patience. And if we're not providing feedback, we're not being an effective leader. So I want to talk about how we give admonishments, how we give feedback, things of that nature. So I think it's critical to our team's success and certainly to the organization's success that we give feedback. And of course, we have to be thoughtful about how we give that feedback, especially if it's what some people call an admonishment, and those of us who work around me and our team, they know we call it constructive feedback. sometimes the feedback we don't necessarily want to have. And I think we should never publicly reprimand or admonish a team of people, especially if it diminishes their dignity. Never deliver an admonishment or feedback with malice. Do it when you're not mad. Reprimands should almost always be given in private, and again should be given in a way that maintains a person's dignity when we do it. Certainly there are situations when private admonishment is not the right course. Have you ever been in a meeting before when you know somebody's let the rest of the team down, and the rest of the team knows they let you down, or let them down? That's when we need to make sure, I think, we make those admonishments or those reprimands in public. Sometimes we need to do that, but I think we need to do that very selectively. Often in business, especially in certain kinds of meetings, I think that's very appropriate. And in that moment, when we're doing that, especially if we're doing it in public, speak calmly, be professional as we possibly can, stay very focused on the very specific practice that we're trying to stop. I think of a gardener who does pruning and watering of a tree. When we are admonishing or giving feedback to our team and to our employee teams, make sure that we have the long-term horizon in mind as we give that admonishment or give that feedback. So do it in a way that's caring. I remember a story, or I'll tell a few stories along the way, and I tried to pick stories that happened a while ago so that some of the innocent are not known or the guilty are not known. But Rachel was kind in her introduction to remind me that I used to be the general manager of Black Hills Fibercom. How many of you remember that? Yeah, how many of you now are VAST customers? If you're a VAST customer, you're part of Black Hills Fibercom. The fiber optic ring we built around the Black Hills in the late 1990s. I was asked to lead that business around Christmas of 2003, December 2003. I stepped out of my legal practice within the company, doing the legal work. And we've been working really hard. There were only 2 lawyers in the company at the time. I think now we have 14, so that tells you something. And so I stepped out as a general manager to do that role. And invariably, I'd only been in the role maybe 2 or 3 days, and our entire system goes down one evening. And I think it was a Friday night. My recollection is correct. We lost our cable TV, we lost internet, and we lost telephone. And so I got the word on that. I walked back to the switch center. That's where all the technical stuff was going on. I saw men and women just flying all over the room trying to figure out what had happened. And I called the manager aside that was in charge of that, and I said, what can I do to support you? What resources can I help you with? I found those resources. I went back to my office. I recall calling my bride, my wife, and said, it's going to be a long night. I'm going to stick out here until we get this resolved. Good learning opportunity for me, good leadership opportunity for me. And so in the wee hours of the morning, we did have the system back up after I ordered some pizzas and things like that. That's what a general manager can do to help, you know. I didn't know what buttons to push. And so we got the system back up, and the manager walked into my office thereafter and said, I want to thank you. I said, well, I didn't do anything. What are you thanking me for? He said, well, I want to thank you for the way you responded. My predecessor, his style would have been come in, yell, scream, and threaten jobs to get this back up as soon as you effing can. He said, you didn't do that to us. In fact, I think we got the system up much faster because you let us alone, you helped us, and we got there. So being patient in a time of stress can be very important. And also being patient with respect to the positive feedback you give. Psychologists tell us that we need to give positive feedback 3 times for every reprimand we give to the average employee. So we keep that emotional bank account as full as we possibly can. So I think also being patient, exercising self-control, making sure we're really watching our team, catching them doing the right things, you've heard that phrase I'm sure before, and then giving authentic feedback in the right time, in the right way. So that's patience. Looks odd, but we'll take it. Not what I expected, but I see. Kind. Mr. Manby describes that as show encouragement and enthusiasm. By a show of hands, how many of you feel like you've had too much encouragement in your life? Yeah, not one. Remember that. There's just simply, and don't look at my wife when you ask that one either. You know, no one raised their hand. A friend raised his hand. You know, encouragement is always in short supply. And I don't believe a person can be authentically encouraged enough. Now, they can get tired of inauthentic encouragement, but if it's authentic, they don't get tired of it. Our job as leaders is to create that enthusiasm and intentionally creating and maintaining the right environment for our organization so that our frontline team can really do their jobs. We have a phrase in our organization that our team will be no better at representing and helping customers than they are with how they get treated inside the organization. They will treat our customers the same way they are treated. So please remember that in terms of your leadership journey. The next is trusting and placing confidence in someone. This is one of my favorites. It's probably where I spend maybe the most time with my team. It's not that we don't have a trusting environment. I have a lot of new direct reports over the last couple of years, so it's not at all. We have a very trusting environment. But without absolute trust, we do not lead effectively. And I want to think about what does trust mean. When we have absolute trust, we're far more effective as leaders, and we're making better decisions as a team. So how do we build trust? Well, there's books written on how you build trust, so I'm not going to be able to address that in the next 45 seconds. In fact, the book that comes to mind is The Speed of Trust, written by Stephen Covey, a bestseller about how we build trust within our team. But let me challenge you in one little area of trust. I think one key method to help us build trust as leaders is to be good listeners. We have to be good listeners. So let me challenge you. Have you ever thought about the relationship between listening and trust? Have you thought about that before? I really hadn't. Somebody challenged me maybe about a year ago. So let me put it this way. Have you ever considered poor listening as a sign of distrust? Have you ever considered that interrupting someone is a sign of distrust? Someone challenged me with that, like I said, about a year ago. I think it's a strong statement, but I also think it's undeniable. So when we learn as leaders that interrupting others shows a lack of trust, the notion of interrupting takes on a whole new significance. So I challenge you with that. When I was challenged with that, my wife called me Mr. Interruptus one time, because I knew better. But it can happen in our work environment. We get excited. We want to move forward. But when we interrupt our team, they interpret it maybe not as enthusiasm or excitement. They are interpreting that as distrust. So think about that. So it's actually hard to listen with intensity. It's very hard to do that, but as leaders, we have to get good at it. Get good at repeating what you've heard from your team so that they know that you've heard them. And I believe there's a word we hear a lot in the workplace about I want to be efficient. I encourage you to replace the word efficient with being effective. If we have effective processes, not efficient process. We have effective means of dealing with our customers, not efficient. Efficiency comes from effectiveness. Have effective processes, and it's a very powerful principle. You know what you had meant by the sliding papers now. One is another is being unselfish. Think of yourself less. I mean, there's a phrase about don't think less of yourself, think less of yourself. And this is an important one, I believe, especially as you ascend the ladder of an organization and take on more responsibility. As leaders, we have a certain amount of what I'll call power or authority. I think those are two good words. I like what Margaret Thatcher said. I'm dating myself in terms of my age, but Margaret Thatcher had a way with words, and she was talking about power here. She said, being powerful is like being a lady. If you have to remind people that you are, you aren't. Very, very well said. So as leaders, I think we need to be very keenly aware of the power and authority that we possess and be focused and measured in how we use it. So what are the ways that we can show up as an unselfish in an organization? Going back to what I talked about first, I think is being a good listener. Taking the time to listen shows that you're being unselfish. You're listening to your team. You care about what your team says. Secondly, I think giving of your time and investing in people within your organization and let people know that you're willing to do that. If I don't value you, I'm not going to put value into you. The more energy and time I put into you, obviously the more that I value you. That's a way that we can show that we're unselfish with our time. And I challenge you also, give back to your community, your time. As leaders, you gain skills, give back your time. Give back your resources, especially your money. Make financial commitments within the community. It will make you a more humble person, and it also be seen by your organization and ripple through that organization, making them more unselfish. Truthful. I really like this one. One of my favorite principles. One of the most critical jobs a leader has, and I'm going to put a little different spin on truthful. We all know we ought to speak truth. That we do, but how do you discover the truth as a leader? How do you understand the truth within your business sector so that you can make quality decisions? I have some challenges for you there. I think when we discover and know what the real truth is for our organization and for our sector, then our team begins to make great and good decisions. So what can we do to take a leader, to be a leader, ensure we're getting at the truth and discovering the truth as much as possible? First, never shoot the messenger. I've got a story on that I'll share in a few moments. Never shoot the messenger. Make your team comfortable to come to you with bad news. Because if you don't make them comfortable to do that, they're not going to come, and you're not going to make the best decisions you can possibly make. And also encourage healthy disagreement. And don't confuse healthy disagreement with conflict. They're two very different things. Welcome different points of view. I want to talk about diversity within our organization. Welcome new points of view. Embrace them and ask for them. And then don't always assume people think the way you think. That's why I see a lot of leaders fall into that trap. Make sure that you understand and you're articulating what you're seeing to be the truth so that they can speak up and say, no, I disagree about what you see as the truth. Now, does that mean we're all going to come to agreement on the truth? No. Otherwise, we'd all be leaders. We wouldn't need the leader. Many times you have to make the hard call about what we're going to do as a team. But once we make that decision, everybody is on board. You no longer speak other truth. You speak the truth that we've decided to pursue. Very important part for our team. I was sitting in the CEO's office in Kansas City, Missouri in 2008, a big transaction we were working on. I'm not kidding you, the CEO's office was bigger than this room. That told you a lot about their culture. So I walk into his office, and the transaction had been agreed to. We're trying to get it accomplished, and we've hit a few bumps along the way. And so it was time for, I wasn't CEO at the time, but I was the officer in charge of the transaction. It's time for us to meet and resolve a few things. I had two people with me from Black Hills Energy, Black Hills Corporation. We walk into his office. He had a team of 8 people sitting on the couches behind him, and we began to discuss a very significant part of the transaction. And I got to a point where I kind of interrupted and said, Mike, that decision's already been made. And his face turned red, and you could tell the blood pressure was up. And he looked at his team and said, why didn't you tell me this decision had already been made? All of them were looking at their feet. It was very clear they had a very good culture where they did not want to give that CEO, bad news on a situation that had resolved. So I learned a lot about that organization in that meeting and how we had to, get the issue done going forward. And again, I think with respect to truth is never avoid conflict. Sometimes we think about love. Oh, I need to embrace everybody. No, if you're not helping people perform better, if you're not addressing poor performance, you're not exercising love within the organization. It's absolutely critical to what we do with our team in terms of feedback and performance. Forgiving. All of us need to be forgiven. I really like this particular principle that Mr. Vanby brings forward in his book. We have to hold people accountable. You've heard me talk about that a lot. But we also have to forgive our teammates. We are all going to make mistakes. If there's anything that we can count on, that there will be mistakes made within our team. They're going to do that. The idea is, okay, how extreme is the mistake? We have fired people in our organization for stealing a case of toilet paper. That was before the pandemic. That just showed a character flaw that we weren't willing to deal with. Hopefully that was long enough ago you don't remember who that was. But we really believe in giving second chances when we can, because we're going to make mistakes. And I remember a story of me and my biggest mistake, one of my biggest mistakes. Many of you know David Emery. He was my predecessor, the CEO. Before he became CEO, he was president, and I was his lawyer. I had fun with David. I carried his bags all over the country, performing and doing acquisitions and things like that. And I was a very busy lawyer. I kind of said there's only two of us at the time, but Mr. Emery called me up one day and said, I need to unfortunately terminate a senior officer in the organization. I need you to start developing and putting documents together so that I can, execute this termination. Sure, Dave, happy to do that. I think it was at 10 o'clock at night. I was finishing up some documents. I'll send these to David so he can start to review. He wanted to talk about them the next morning. And because that person he was terminating, I often did lots of legal work with that person in the organization. So I got David an email, and I copied the person that he was firing on the email, and I hit send.
Oh.
And I didn't know I hit send until the next morning. The employee calls me up, said, I'm fine with this termination agreement, but we need to negotiate this. I go, ooh. Sorry. Begged off that conversation as quickly as I could. I called up Mr. Emery, and I said, David, you're going to fire me. And he starts laughing. I said, no, you might fire me. And I explained to him what I did. He said, well, at least you did the hard part for me. But he forgave me, and I had great loyalty to David ever since because of that. So, my own story there. And those in my team who have done things like that, I've done that before. So. And then finally, be dedicated to our values in all circumstances. All of us have managed through the last couple of years. If you've managed any group of employees, you've had a tough couple of years as we managed through pandemics, etc. A great example of how we have to stick to our values in very tough times. And we've got to be dedicated to those values, and we've got to be hard rock. In fact, I'm going to show you our values in our next slide. But we just celebrated Martin Luther King Day just a few days ago, Monday, and Dr. King had a phrase that I think is very powerful. He says, power without love is reckless and abusive. Power without love is reckless and abusive. And love without power is sentimental and anemic. That's a very, very powerful statement. I think he understood about how we harness both power and love together to do well. And I think for us at Black Hills Energy, this really came through, as I said, in the pandemic. We had no game plan. You didn't have one either. In fact, I remember attending a call of all the CEOs in the utility business, and frankly, there's not that many of us left anymore. There's only like 40 companies left in the United States that own publicly traded utilities. And we were told by a virologist, anticipate that 90% of your people are not going to show up at some point in this pandemic. Wow, how do we keep the lights on? How do we keep the gas flowing? And we can look back in the rearview mirror, but that moment in time, we go, wow, we've got a problem. And of course, we've learned a lot through that. But sticking to our values is what I think we learn the most as a team. What are we about? What are we trying to accomplish as an organization? Let's make sure we get them accomplished. So I decided I'd give you a slide of our values. We put these together around 2009. We've added one value to them since 2009. But I tend to make this statement to get people's attention within the company. For example, respect. Respect is not a priority within Black Hills Corporation. And I'll repeat it. Respect is not a priority. Respect's not a priority because priorities change. This is a value within Black Hills Corporation. These are steadfast and they do not change. In fact, the way we make sure that our team is focused on our values is they're part of your performance review. We have a 6-month performance review, we have annual performance review, and we're all rated on how we reflect these values in our annual performance review. We get a rating on each one. And then we also have the highest award you can receive in our organization. It's called the CEO Summit Award. Anybody within the company can nominate someone else within the company, that's what makes it the highest award, is you can be nominated by your peers. And then I have the hard job of picking the winners from those who represent our values the best for the year. So that's how we make sure our values stay front and center. So there's a list of them all combined. Now, some of you will have a little fun with you, but where do these phrases come from? We have one minister here in the audience with us. But how many of you have been to a wedding and maybe heard 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7 read? Yes, love is. What is love? So I think that's exactly where Mr. Manby took his comments. And I always wonder why 1 Corinthians 13 verse 1 is not read, which I think is really the most important part of that chapter. It indicates that I can do all these things in life, the extraordinary in life, but if I don't have love, what am I? A clanging cymbal and a gong. A noisy gong, there it was, noisy gong for a clanging cymbal. So that's how important, love is with respect to the things we do as leaders. So love in action at Black Hills Energy. I hope this doesn't come across as bragging, but I did want to have an opportunity to talk about, what are we doing within our company and things of that nature. The graphic artist in the room will cringe. I did this myself. So this is I tried to talk about, as we think about love in the workplace, we think about just, everything's nice and kind and everything's just wonderful. That's not what love, the verb is. That's love, the emotion, perhaps. But these are some of the things that we wrestle with at a very high level. Safety and wellness, our highest priority in our organizations. Everybody goes home safely, and we keep you as customers with our company safe with our electricity and with our gas. Customer satisfaction. We have to have satisfied customers or we're not in business. Great workplace, community impact, really involved in our communities. All of this revolves around the tension of shareholder value. Because we cut costs in any of those, at least for a while, shareholder value can arguably go up because earnings go up. So as leaders, I encourage us not to ignore this tension, but this is exactly where we need to be as leaders within our organization to wrestle with the tension that we see here. So what have we done? Again, careful not to brag on ourselves, but here's some things. As we thought about these priorities, we built Horizon Point. We had people spread over 5 buildings in the city. In 2016, we went through a major transaction. We knew we were going to bring hundreds of more people potentially to Rapid City to work with us. We needed a place for them to work. And going back to these, we needed a great workplace that helps us go solve problems. So we designed a building to allow our team, before the pandemic, we thought we were doing things really well. It's worked out fine even during the pandemic. But we wanted an open environment where we could create these collisions with our employees, we call them, that we can solve things on behalf of shareholders and solve things on behalf of our customers. Not only do we invest in our corporate people, but we invest in our team out in the field. We're really facing the customer every day. The pictures on the bottom, we have built a state-of-the-art training facility in Council Bluffs, Iowa. The middle building is where the training happens inside. Outside, you can see we've literally built these small little miniature neighborhoods where our instructors can go out and set up a scenario, and then our team has to go solve it. And that gives them confidence, helps keep us safe, helps us with customer satisfaction, etc. So, a great investment for us. Giving back, obviously as a utility, our company grows as our communities grow. So we have a real strong reason to be contributing to our communities. And let me point out, because before I worked for the organization, when I'd see Black Hills Energy was making a donation, I'd say, well, why don't you just lower my bill? Instead of doing that, let me decide who to donate to. But I want to assure you that all of our contributions are shareholder dollars. We do not use customer dollars for these contributions. But you can see we were very active in our community with $5.6 million in 2020 of giving and making sure that we're sponsoring our organization, our communities. We feel very strongly that our company is no stronger than the communities that we serve. Without a strong community, we cannot be a strong and growing organization. So we highly encourage volunteerism. We encourage it. We actually ask our employees to record it when you do it. Whether it's soccer league, whether it's baseball, whether it's being a mayor of a community, firefighters. We got lots of volunteer firefighters within our organization, so it's a way that we continue to give back. And then a very important part of our plan is we love living here, don't we? But not everybody's too excited about Rapid City, South Dakota. And we're a publicly traded company living in a town of 80,000 people. I love that. That's just my sweet spot. I get to live in a small town and do some very sophisticated work. But we work very hard at getting people to come to our organization and then making sure that we retain them and invest in them. Over a decade ago, we started something called Aspire. we actually asked women in our organization to help us figure out how we become a workplace of choice for women. We've done a pretty good job at that and continue to need to get better. We're a little bit geeky. We even have groups for analytics and project management, but that goes to us. Thank you for the warning. But that tells you a lot about us. We hire a lot of engineers, a lot of accountants, a lot of lawyers in our organization. Something else very important to us is diversity. We're getting demands from our stakeholders all the time about being a diverse organization, and that's fine. But really the reason why we're doing diversity is because study after study after study shows that the more diverse you are, the more diverse thinking you have, the more diverse background you have within your organization, the more innovative you're going to be, the better you're going to serve your customers, and the greater the shareholder value is going to be. It's very important. This is how we help us with the inclusion and belonging. We feel that everybody belongs, our diversity really begins to grow, and we serve some extremely diverse communities. We serve 823 communities across our territories. We want to look as much like them as we possibly can. So I really enjoyed the first one. I just finished 2 reverse mentoring programs where I had people of different ethnicity mentor me for the last 6 months. So I understood what they endure each day. Eye-opening experience for me. Encourage you to do that as well if you have the opportunity. How many of you have heard the phrase ESG? And look, this team can't raise their hand. Yeah, I'm just curious. We'll do an experiment there. This is something that's really taking over the investment world: environment, social, and governance. And we're on top of it. In fact, I'd say the shareholder finally caught up with us. We've been looking at ESG matters for a long time, but so many decisions are being made by investors now through an ESG lens: environment, social, and governance. So we're on top of that. So what are some of our results? Again, I don't want to come across as bragging, but there's some things that have happened. I think we're doing pretty well. There's our injury rate. You can see how we're injuring fewer and fewer employees, going the right direction. How many of you are Black Hills Energy customer? Yeah, thank you. Did you realize we're one of the most reliable utilities in the nation? In fact, one of our utilities finished #1 most reliable utility in the nation last year. So the benefit of these investments we're making is coming through on behalf of our customers. We were named the 50 most engaged workforces several years in a row. Real proud of our team with respect to that. Our J.D. Power scores are skyrocketing. J.D. Power a few days ago said, we need to figure out what's going on at Black Hills Energy. Our J.D. Power scores are skyrocketing. And OSHA has even noticed us as being a star performer with respect to safety. We do a speak up survey about every 18 months. Some great scores about safety. 91% of our team are highly engaged with respect to safety. Company values, 85% of our team highly engaged with that. And something we've been very focused on is manager and supervisor effectiveness. Employees don't leave companies. They leave supervisors. They leave managers. So if we have effective managers, we're more likely to retain our team. Can't see that one very well from my angle, but with this last Speak Up survey, we asked our team, please tell us where the challenges are. Where can we improve our processes? We had more than 1,200 handwritten responses to that question, showing a highly engaged team. Very proud of that. And then I said, we're all here for the shareholder in the end. Decent earnings growth. We have increased our dividend for 51 consecutive years. That's the longest streak of any now utility in the nation. We were #3 just a couple of years ago, but some tripped, and now we are the longest, which is, I think, something that our team can be very proud of. And I tell my senior leadership team, don't be the one to screw that up. So I'll end with a quote by Martin Luther King: the time is always right to do what is right. I think that's a great quote. The time is always right to do what is right. And then I'll quote another, our retired Chief Human Resources Officer, retired probably 6-7 years ago. He said, you know, the soft stuff is the hard stuff when it comes to managing people. And I think love and action is the soft stuff. So thank you for your attention. I think that was it. Love to try to respond to questions, and if you have some, please. How are we doing on time?
We got 10 minutes for some questions, but I have one for you.
Rachel has one, okay.
How are you sharing the 7 love principles with your team.
Yeah.
How is this going?
Question is, how are we celebrating, how are we communicating these with our team? If you remember, I'm getting some details because Rachel's an employee of ours, one of my coworkers here. You heard Jen Landis, our CHRO, speak at one of our huddles. We have huddles every other Thursday. One benefit of the virus is we can get everybody together on a Zoom call now. So we have thousands of people that will tune in on Thursday morning. Tomorrow I get to lead that. And tomorrow I've been encouraged to speak more about this. I haven't quite decided what those talking points are going to be yet. But I think we haven't brought the word in yet, but as I tried to illustrate, we brought the element into our culture. What are these things that we're focused on? And there is a company that I'm watching very closely. How many of you heard of PG&E in California? PG&E's gone through a whole lot of, they did, what was the woman's name many years ago? Sorry. I heard it. Yes. No, Aaron Brockovich, thank you. Aaron Brockovich was theirs. They had an explosion that killed a number of people several years. They've had a lot of problems. And their CEO is I'll be careful to say this, she's a friend, more than an acquaintance, not a real close friend, young lady in her 40s, is now the CEO of PG&E, and she is using this love within the workplace. And we're a rough and tumble industry. How many of you know a line mechanic or a lineman? You know, they're not exactly pushovers, are they? And line pipe fitters are not pushovers. We're a tough industry with people who, when we're closing the door, when the storm starts, they're headed out. So that's the type of people we get to lead, and that's what makes my job so fun. So Rachel, is a trick question from her, and what are we doing? You're going to hear a lot more about this within Black Hills Energy, and we're getting that geared up. It needs to be done the right way.
And I have a question.
Please.
How does your faith impact your leadership?
That's Corey Harrop, he's the director of Young Life. I serve on his committee. So he said, how does my faith inform? That's not the word you use, but me as a leader. Yeah, man, it's everything as a leader. I just expressed all these things came from a biblical scripture. And we all have to know what truth is. We have to have a balanced line from which we manage the organization. It's a challenge right now. It's in many circumstances because how many of you heard of Larry Fink? You know, one hand. Larry Fink is the CEO of BlackRock. BlackRock has how many trillions of assets right now? They are our largest shareholder, Black Hills Corporation. Justin, how many shares do they own right now? He's our treasurer. He's a new treasurer. They own a lot. In fact, I get to have a call, unfortunately not with Larry Fink on Friday, but we get to have a call with BlackRock talking to us about ESG and things of that nature. And so, you know, it's important to me. Try not to wear it on my sleeve, but I think people know that that's from where I make my decisions as a leader in the organization. And we deal with some things in our organization with 3,000 employees that can be challenging from time to time from that perspective. But it doesn't mean we don't give up and keep pushing forward. So it's very important to me. Other questions?
Yeah, as an organization, you've obviously spent a lot of time, sweat, and tears to develop some truly impressive tools and resources. Is there any way, or is there already existing a way for some of these paths and tools that you developed could be shared so that some of the smaller organizations in this area could benefit from all this effort that's obviously doing so many good things already?
The answer to that is absolutely. Come see us, please. Okay. You know our numbers. But yeah, we're happy to share that. Again, it goes back to growing our communities. If we have strong businesses and strong nonprofits in our community, we're going to be better. And from that value and from that perspective, we love helping others. It's part of our DNA. We'd like to put our employees on your boards, things of that nature. I get a call probably every other 3 or 4 weeks. You know, somebody in town looking for a board member. Who do you have at Black Hills that you might recommend? And not that we've got all the answers. We want to be very careful about that. But we're always happy to say, hey, yeah, we've got a young, aspiring leader who's learned a lot of things. They benefit from it. They bring that unselfishness back to our organization. They bring a new perspective because you get to solve different problems in different ways. So it's a win-win situation for us. So reach out, please. That's it? All right. Thank you. Oh, maybe over here.
Yeah, you have employees spread out really far.
Yeah.
What's being a leader when you have employees spread out so far? What's the hardest thing about trying to incorporate all this with everyone, and what's your tools to?
Great question. Great question, insightful question. We have 3,000 employees spread over about 110, 112 different office sites across our company. Something that we do, pandemic slowed us down, but we're turning the volume back up, is I require each of our officers, we pair up and we go out each year and we spend about 3 to 4 weeks in the field talking about our strategy with employees in groups of 20 or smaller, trying to make them small. So that's one way that we've been doing that. The pandemic really hampered that quite a bit because we just can't get together and haven't been get together. But we've recommitted over the last couple of weeks that starting next week, we're going to have teams of people out doing that. The huddles that I mentioned before have been pretty effective, especially early on in the pandemic. We would have 2,700, 2,800 people on a Zoom call at one time, and I'm speaking directly to them. I mean, that's fantastic. That was a silver lining of the pandemic. And also making sure that you're aligned as leaders within the organization. We have, our organization is organized that we have a state leader in each state. And I hold those women and men accountable to understanding our strategy, making sure that we are expressing our values, etc. And then I bring them to town. Well, we used to bring them to town. We'll start that again. We do Zoom calls once a quarter. But it's something I've learned about Zoom calls. I was holding some employee meetings right before Christmas at Horizon Point, small groups asking people to come in. Let's just talk about where we are with the business. And somebody asked that question, we're going to do those strategic review meetings that we used to do. And I said, well, you know we did them last year. We just did them on Zoom. No, we didn't. So I think we've all tired of, a long time ago, of Zoom. And then our communication team is really important to us. And communicating opportunities like this over and over again. We were talking about unselfishness. An example was we had a family, sadly, who lost their house November-ish, I think, right before Thanksgiving. House burned to the ground, lost everything in it. One of our employees lived in Colorado, and sadly they lost their 4-year-old son in that fire. And so during the huddle, that was our safety share, was home fire safety, and the employee had given me the permission to share, the sad story. And at the end of it, said, I don't know how this family could deal with this, but one of his cousins had gone out and put on Amazon a wish list of over 570 items that, of course, they needed for their new home. Within 24 hours, BHE employees bought all 570 of those items and sent them to the family. So tomorrow I get to read a letter from the family thanking, in our huddle, thanking for that. So we just take those kinds of opportunities to really reinforce our values. And then we just went through performance season. We enjoyed it, didn't we? But again, re-emphasizing the things that we measure strategic goals. We measure values. If you're a manager, we have certain management characteristics that we want to measure you against as well. Hold ourselves accountable. So a rambling answer. Lots of different things that we have to do, but it is a challenge. It's nice if we all just walk out onto the warehouse floor and talk to everybody. We can't do that, so we have to be more creative. It takes time away from family to go see people. Thanks for that question. Well, with that, I think I'll wrap up and turn it back to Rachel. So thank you very much.
And thank you all for joining us. Before we wrap up and get out back into the cold, we're going to do a drawing. 2 separate names. One will be for the book that Linn recommended, and one will be for a future luncheon. So looks like Chandra is making her way. Might be Linn gets the honors to draw. All right. First winner is Adam Kamenki. Oh, I said that wrong. Thank you, Kamek. Congrats, you won the book. And then the luncheon will go to Oh, George can't win. So, no, I'm just kidding. George we look forward to seeing you at a future luncheon of your choice. Thank you all for being here, and we will look forward to seeing you in February. We have a great set, I guess would call, for 2022, so I look forward to seeing you all at a next luncheon. Thank you.
All right, let's see what happens.